Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of today's guests, including Ray Ferraro, standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. Escape to the Bayside, the ideal mid-island destination. For a relaxing weekend getaway, enjoy comfortable accommodations, ocean views, and exceptional service. Book your stay today at BaysideResortParksville.com. Canada beats the U.S. 3-2 in overtime. Ray Ferraro was in Boston last night for the NHL on ESPN, of course, also Canucks analyst on Sportsnet. Ray, thanks for doing this, sir. I know you're busy. How are you?
I am good. I'm a little tired. Got to tell you, the Washington at Pittsburgh game I'm doing tomorrow doesn't hold the same zip as last night, so that's where I'm headed now.
Okay, Ray, I believe, I didn't see the ESPN broadcast, but I believe ice level between the benches. Tell us about that moment that McDavid scored. What was it like for you?
It was really kind of stunning. I don't know. Overtime is always so interesting, right? Like there's times when you can just feel it, like it's going to end. And that I didn't feel when Binnington made the third of the three saves on Matthews. Like my gut was like, I don't think it's the U.S.'s night. Like it's like those chances were too good by the right guy, and none of them went. And so you're like, you don't keep getting those. It just, you guys know, you watch hockey forever. Like it just doesn't, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to work like that. And and then the play doesn't even look like anything, and then all of a sudden McDavid's open. And there's so much that goes into a play like that I'm reading online, and people are ripping Matthews for leaving McDavid open. So just try and think of it. So McDavid's shot misses the net, and it goes around to Makar. From the time Makar shoots it around the back of the net, it's in the net like no more than 2 seconds later. Matthews made a very common mistake of he watched the puck go around the boards and made a decision in literally a half a second that I've got to go. Mm-hmm. And as soon as he started, he was screwed. And my point is, like, these decisions happen like literally a blink of an eye. And if Marner bobbles that puck in the corner, nothing happens. But he fielded it clean, and now Matthews is stuck. He's not there nor here, right? He's right in the middle. And I mean, most overtime games end on a mistake somewhere. It was a coverage read and a coverage mistake, and it sometimes. This is, I think, what I felt once I digested it, is sports sometimes has an amazing poetry to it. And, in 2010, we saw Sid score, and it cemented his legacy of greatness. I don't think the goal last night does quite the same, but it kind of felt like the torch passed. And in Canada, there's a real poetry to that.
And Matthews, I should mention, 2 assists last night. I think he had 7 shot attempts, 4 shots on goal. I thought he played very well. Yeah. And sometimes you just make a mistake, right? Like it happens. There's I think I've mentioned on here before. Like we hear lots of times, we got to play a 60-minute game, and well, that never happens, right? Like the other team's allowed to try too. Sometimes you have a desire to play a certain way, and it just doesn't happen because the other team was better for a certain period of time. Like, no, you can break that game down 53 different ways, but for most Canadians, they got to look at that and go, Canada won with a goalie none of them wanted to start, and he made 3 game-saving saves, 3 of them. That thing should have been over 3 times. And you got to tip your hat to Binnington because he did it again. He was he was fantastic, really all night, but overtime was amazing for him.
Hey, Ray, look a little bit ahead for me. The Americans were a pretty heavy-set team. The Tkachuk brothers are going to be a handful for years to come. Do you think the Canada's get a little bit bigger in the future for this American team?
I think both teams saw a little preview into Milan of next year.
Right.
And some of it was by accident. The injuries, put Jake Sanderson and Thomas Harley into the game. And I think both of those guys are going to be on the Olympic teams. Like, they're big and fast and mobile. And they both, for getting dropped into the middle of this thing, they both, I thought, played terrific. And that was no plan, right? Like, they're like, oh, yeah, you got to play. And play they did. The U.S. team, of course, will have Quinn Hughes on it. That changes just about everything for them. Charlie McAvoy will be on that team. I would think players like Paige Thompson and Matthew Nyes will be on that team. Outside of Quinn, every one of those guys I mentioned, is big.
Yeah. Yep.
I think if you look at the Canadian roster, there was a few forwards that are of similar size. I can't imagine they'll all be on the team. There was a few forwards that are a little slower afoot. I'm telling you, I could not believe how fast the game was. And there were guys in the game that looked pedestrian. And you're like, oh my God, these are some of the best players in the league. Like the pace of everything was, it's measurable because we have these, the numbers, I guess, if you find them, but it's almost like unbelievable to see how little time there is. And I'll give you a great example. Well, I think it's a great example anyway, is after the overtime goal against the Swedes, Mitch Marner didn't have a very good tournament. After a period and a half last night, he was one of Canada's lowest minute forwards. And then they flipped him and Mark Stone. And it almost became, I think, like that there was a learning click for Marner, that there's no time to be tricky with the pucks. There's no time to hold it and wait and try to find a different play. You got to go. You got to get it. You got to move. And people talk about Marner's IQ, about how his hockey IQ is off the charts. I think he learned. Like, that's what it looked like to me, because he was terrific in the last half of the game. So I guess that's part of the point of this tournament, is I think both nations got a sneak preview into the future. And I'm with you, Rick. Like, Canada's got to be bigger, but they have to be faster. Yeah. And I think that was pretty clear.
Hey, Ray, what did this tournament do for the USA? We know ratings are up. Can they improve on it? You got a pretty good read. You're down there a lot. What did this tournament do for the US of A? Hockey.
Well, it got people that don't watch to watch.
Yep.
Like all this stuff that the league always babbles about growing the game, and we're going to go play 2 games in Sweden at the start of the year and then disappear. That doesn't grow the game. Like, that's about revenue. This grows the game. So I mentioned in part of our sign-off last night that, I was on SportsCenter after the game, and they asked me about growing the game in the U.S. And I said, my wife tells me that when the 1980 team won, their family, like their kids, their friends, they were all out on the streets and in the basements of their houses being the 1980 team. It gave them something to dream about. It gave them something to connect to. And a lot of the people that she talked about, they weren't hockey people. Right. So Cammie has relatives in Texas. They were watching. Like, they don't watch hockey,
right,
but they were watching. They were asking about the players. What about this guy? What is this a good rule? Like, this is what growth of the game looks like, in my opinion. It's that they don't have to suck in me and you and Donnie. We're already in. You need to get people that are at best casual observers and get them to be interested. Well, they are. They were. Now, can you transform that? And I guess what the big picture takeaway of this is what international hockey does. because I did Game 7 of the Stanley Cup last year, and of the final, and it was awesome. One of my favorite things I've been fortunate enough to do. This felt different. Just for me, standing there, it just felt different. And so I think the league stumbled into something that they had no idea was going to be this big. And you could see it walking around the rink and talking to people from the league. They were just blown away with how wonderfully this became a spectacle for the sport.
Ray, you mentioned Cammy. It's well documented that you're married to an American. I know you were covering the tournament, but what was the Ferraro household like the last couple of weeks?
Oh, the boys said that Cammy was cheering for the U.S. Right? I mean, she's an American, but she's also a Canadian citizen, and so the boys like to give it to her, when it doesn't work out. And you know what we all are in our house is, well, Cammy and I guess in particular, Landon as well, is we're hockey fans. Mm-hmm. And deep down I wanted Canada to win because I'm Canadian, but also for all the other crap that's going on.
Yeah.
I wanted Canada to win. But what I wanted to see was amazing hockey. And I've told almost everybody I was hopeful the tournament was going to be good. The first shift of the first game, when the puck got dumped in the corner and Nate McKinnon ran Victor Hedman, I was like, oh, they're going to play. It was that clear to me in that moment that, oh, this is something. And so I don't think they could have scripted any of it any better. Like if you were to write down on paper, how does this tournament become a hit? You would have kind of drawn it up like this, and it was a grand slam.
Ray, one more very quickly. Sorry about this, but news from Canuckland today. Kevin Lankinen extended by the Canucks 5 years, 4.5 AAV. Do you understand why?
Oh, of course. I mean, certainly. His play has been a standout part and point of the Canucks season. Demko's health obviously has to play into it. The other part is, so now I think Demko's got 1 year at $5 million left.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So next year you're paying $9.5 million for goaltenders. And with an $80 million cap, that's a big deal. But as the cap rises, we got to, I think, look less at the numbers and more of the percentage. I think we're going to start to hear more and more about that, right? Like the percentage of the cap. And so it really doesn't chew a big chunk of this, of the cap going forward. But, I guess your two choices are you sign them or you let them go, and then you look for somebody like Kevin Lankinen. Like, how many times are you going to swing the bat and have a guy come in for $800,000 and do this? Like, how many times is that going to happen? The answer is, well, we just saw it, and that might be the last time.
Yeah.
So the goaltending, we know goaltending is this critically important position that nobody has a handle on, that nobody can quite ever figure out, because there's guys like Kevin Lankinen that come in from the outside lane, and you're like, oh my God, this guy's a really good goalie. But like, why didn't anybody else see that for the last couple of years, right? It just, because the position's really hard. I like his demeanor. I like the way he competes. I like the way he seems to fit as a tandem goaltender. And I think with the way the game's played, the tandem goalie is going to be more and more critical. They're not making more goalies. It's getting harder and harder to find guys that you trust.
Ray, sounds like you're at an airport. Safe travels, my friend, and thanks so much for this.
You betcha. I'm on the way to Pittsburgh. And like I said, I think I've probably got about as much enthusiasm to get on this plane as the players do to play tomorrow. They're like, can you imagine? Like, those guys that played last night, they're all on planes today, and they got to play. Most of them are going to play tomorrow. This will be the other thing we'll talk about next week is there's going to be significant players in this tournament that are not going to be playing.
Yeah.
And this is the headwind to all of international hockey that we hear from the league and the owners all the time. And it's a real thing. We got a great event, but there's going to be some teams that are going to be missing some key people for a while.
You'll make that Caps Pens game great, Ray. You're a pro. Thanks for this.
Donnie, it'll be like a lousy highlight that you got to dance up back in the 80s, big boy. We'll get it done.
All right. Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.
Take care, guys. Have a nice day.